Yeah. Something called the enterprise mission.com.
All right. Well.
Alternative hyperdimensional physics.
Well, you can thank myself for most of the constructive criticism on the title. I don't remember what the original working title was, but it sucked.
Yeah, okay, so we're like about 10 or 15 seconds out.
Good to go? Okay, so hi. The title of this is To Boldly Go Where No Broadband Has Gone Before, not, hey, look, new Atari can actually dress like a human being. Okay, so I work for an internet service provider called Amplex Electric, Inc. We started doing dial-up back in '97, and we wanted to get into the broadband market about 5 years ago. And we decided to go with a wireless solution. And why did we go with wireless? Because the first thing people think of when they think of a wireless ISP is last resort provider. I can't get anything else, so I guess I'll settle for a wireless carrier. Now, I don't believe that's true. That wonderful title goes to the satellite carriers, because you couldn't pay me to take a satellite internet connection. They're just horrible. But why would you go with a wireless solution? One reason is you're probably not a LEC. You do not have miles of copper cable that was subsidized by the government years ago that you can use to sell DSL. And why would you want to sell DSL anyway? It's a horrible hack, and it's the slow one. When Roadrunner advertises, you know, their little Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoon commercials, it's true. DSL is Wile E. Coyote. And you probably don't have the massive amounts of capital to deploy cable, especially if you go after the target audience we went after. We went out into the rural areas of this state where it is just not practical. It costs the average cable carrier about $15,000 to cover a line of road a mile long, whether there's 6 houses on it or 30. So it's just not practical. Where was I going with this? And another reason you wouldn't want to go with Rat Race DSL is you can't make any money on it. You're probably going to get it from a CLEC. You've got to pay for an aggregation circuit to that CLEC. The CLEC is paying the loop fees to the LEC, so everybody's got all their fingers in this tiny little pie. I mean, you can get 768K DSL for $19.95 a month. I don't really see how that's a competition to what is actually out there and available, but some people will just buy based on price. And when you're selling DSL for $29.95 and hoping that some other merit of your service sells it other than price, you are just not going to get that many customers. And another reason you'd go out into the rural area is because, well, there was just less competition out there. Nobody had done it before, so we thought we'd try it. The reason this all started was there was a company out in Northwest Ohio called Lucky Farmers. They own a bunch of grain silos, and they have a central office in a place called Woodville, Ohio. They wanted to centralize their inventory system. They asked us, is there some way we can do this? Because what the phone company is proposing is we buy a bunch of 56K leased lines at each site, tie them in at our central site, and it's going to cost a fortune. Is there some better way to do this? And we said, yeah! Can we sell off your towers? Can we use them for access points? And a match made in heaven was born. And we've since expanded. We make deals with water and sewer districts, municipalities that own water towers. They get free internet, we get a tower. It's really great because buying tower space from some of the tower companies out there, Tower King, you're generally going to be going about $1 a foot an antenna. So if you want 6 antennas at 100 feet, that's $600 a month. It's just not practical. And when you factor in the cost that your average access point, a good access point, you're paying about $1,200, $1,300 for them, plus all the cabling, all the networking equipment, you're never going to soak up that cost and make a profit. So you really need to find some opportunity like this, and we were very lucky. Now, the system that we use, and I'm going to try and make this sure that this talk does not sound like a Canopy sales pitch, but we do use Motorola Canopy, which is not 802.11. I hate 802.11. It drives me crazy. There are a lot of other ones. Wake up. This conference is actually fed by a Trango unit, which has a lot of things in common with Canopy gear, the least of which is it's not 802.11. 802.11 has a bunch of problems. It is great for roaming around this conference with your laptop, with your wireless card, and getting roaming access. That's what it was designed for. You get all these wireless service providers that are trying to shoehorn it into some other situation, last mile delivery, and it doesn't work. Because what 802.11 does at its core is it takes Ethernet signaling and Ethernet's flow control, which is essentially collision detection, and adds a few cheap hacks on top, like clear to send, and calls this a time-sharing system. So let's say that this projector right here is the access point, and we are all clients off of this. You people in the back there, you're miles out. You people are miles out. I'm a couple miles out. And I'm standing here talking to this omnidirectional access point, going, I've got traffic, I'm sending stuff, and you're all trying to do stuff too. The more people you jam onto an access point in 802.11, the slower it gets, because 802.11 makes an assumption. It thinks that you can all see each other at least a little bit. And when you've got a directional antenna pointed at an access point and somebody else has got a directional antenna pointed at an access point from miles away, they cannot see each other. They will happily both scream at the access point at the same time, very frequently. The odds of this happening go way up as you add customers. Another problem with 802.11 is you only have the 11 channels, and in reality, only 3 of them do not bleed all over each other. You've got 1, you've got 6, you've got 11. So you can mitigate this. You can put 3 access points, 120-degree sectors at a tower site, and that will mitigate it for a little while. But then what happens when you start having that problem? Customers on this 120 over here interfering with customers over here. So what do you do then? Well, you can reuse frequencies. You can put 60-degree sectors up, and you can have 1 and 1 facing this way, and 11 and 11 facing this way, and 6 and 6 facing this way. That's about it. Unless you can achieve 100 degrees of vertical separation, you are not going to put any more access points on that tower. You are done. And it's really the only frequency. Yeah, I know there's 802.11a, which is 5.7. I have never seen that work in any kind of long-distance environment. It is just pathetic how weak it is. Where else am I going with this? Okay, so what is different about all the other ones? There's Trango, there's Canopy, Redline, and there's a bunch of other ones. They do share something in common. What they use for their time sharing is generally a GPS timing pulse, which has some implications for your network. You have to maintain an entirely separate network of just timing pulses. So every tower generally has a little GPS receiver, and you have a whole second set of cables going all over the place, feeding all the access points, all the backhauls joining your towers together. It's kind of a pain in the butt because you don't have a whole lot of redundancy options with this. But what it does do is you can shove. We thought the upper limit on an access point when we started doing this was about 55, 60. We figured that they would not be able to handle any more of that. At the very least, the backplane would start to get saturated. We have omnidirectional access points with 80, 90 customers on them, and they are blazing fast. The customers are getting 5 meg down, 2 meg up, and that's in 5.7. I should have made this bigger. The only downside to this, of course, is you are marrying yourself to a vendor. You can't buy a bunch of Trango client units and point them at a Canopy access point and it work. Conversely, you can't switch Redline and Motorola. You are marrying yourself to a vendor. The reason I like Motorola is they've been extremely good to us. They're very responsive. They attend conventions very similar to this one. They listen to what the community has to say. They respond to feature requests. They've been great. And so, competing with cable and DSL, the first thing you got to get around with is a bunch of myths about wireless. My favorite wireless myth is it's less secure. I love this. How is a cable in the ground or stretched along a utility pole any way more secure? Where is this magic coming from? One, it is not a reasonable attack vector to drive around in a van with a bunch of antennas on it trying to leach stuff out of the air. That is not how you are going to compromise somebody's computer. Nobody is going to bother to do that. They're going to do what we learned about with Bruce Potter's talk yesterday. They're going to send out ridiculous, malformed English letters and hope somebody clicks on them. And people do. I hear from the same 30 people every week. And really, wouldn't it be just as easy to get some alligator clips and make some kind of sniffing device and plug into one of those telephone posts that are all over the landscape that are never locked, or if they are, it's just with some kind of screw, and you just torque wrench them open and you can steal long distance from your neighbors? I'm not endorsing that, but
Wait, how do you do that again?
that's for after the talk when the cameras are not recording. Okay, and another thing is reliability. A lot of this stuff looks like satellite TV dishes, and as everybody knows, satellite, you're shooting up through the clouds in the stratosphere. Every time there's heavy cloud cover, every time there's fog, every time the dish gets full of snow, your TV goes out. And case in point, we use refurbished Dish Network dishes for our reflectors for our long-range customers. They are about half the cost of the official Motorola ones, and they do exactly the same thing. Can't lose. But people look at it and they think, oh, it's a satellite. Does it go out every time it rains? No. It has to get extremely foggy because all you're doing is you're traveling flush with the ground towards some local access point 2 to 12 miles away. It's really not affected by a whole lot of weather. The exception is the 900 megahertz stuff where you're at extremely long range. You're going to use a big multifaceted Yagi. Freezing rain will kick those customers off the network. And really all you can do is you can either encourage the customer to go out there with a propane torch and melt it, or you can do it for them. Or you can tell them to wait. They don't like this. Some days I really regret deploying 900 megahertz. However, that's about it, yeah. The things that you can do, or should I do cannot do? Cannot do. One thing that you cannot do, and this drives me crazy because I don't understand why you would want this anyways, is you cannot offer a VIP solution, or you probably can't. This is the video, internet, and phones thing. The cable companies are huge on this. Our biggest competitor in Northwest Ohio is pushing it heavily. What we are trying to do is make a partnership with Dish Networks. They don't like the idea of us billing the customer and then us just paying them, because what the VIP is really all about is you only have to pay one bill. It doesn't actually save you a whole lot of money. You may save $5 on some kind of bargain package if you buy all the cable channels and get the whole long distance thing. You might save some money, but really it's just about only sending in one check every month, not 3. And phones, if you trust your network enough and you want to deal with the 911 hassle, you could probably do some kind of voice over IP solution. I'm of the impression that we need to do this to stay competitive. My boss is absolutely terrified of doing this and doesn't want to have to learn to run a phone switch, even an asterisk-based one, even though we already have one. And another thing you cannot do is you cannot compete on price. You can compete on honesty about your price. If you ever get a DSL bill, Sprint United is great about this. They advertise the $19.95 DSL package. One, it comes burstable up to 768K down to 128K up, whoop-de-doo. And you get your first month's bill, and there's all these little $2 and $3 charges, and you're paying $30, $40 for your service. People hate that. People always ask us, well, how many other additional fees are there? None. My service is $49.95. That's what your bill is going to say. What really gets me is when the DSL companies charge you tax. I love that. Residential broadband in Ohio is not taxable, but they tax you. And in terms of performance, you can blow DSL out of the water. Like I said, I can offer 5, sometimes 6 meg down off the core towers. 4.5 off on the outlying ones just because we don't have backhaul links that can handle the congestion because we're poor. And in the service department, this is where you can really shine. I am talking about a lot of people out in rural areas. They do not want to talk to someone in India. I have had people actually put a dollar amount on talking to an English-speaking person. And they call me and they go, oh, well, who am I going to talk to if I have a problem? Do I have to call some other number? No, sir, you call me. You're going to develop a rapport with your customers. And as much as it's very tempting when these companies call and say, hey, why don't you consider outsourcing your tech support? You can save a lot of time. It's really tempting because I can't stand talking to some of these people. Like I said, I talk to the same 30 people every week. The same 30 people. It never ends. They never learn. The rest of them I hear from twice. Once to install, once to say, hey, this is great, and then they never call again. It's wonderful. But I believe it would be business suicide to outsource our tech support, because then I don't have any advantage over the cable companies that are charging just about the same thing we are and can offer the VIP solution. I have, tier 1 tech support that, just read off a script, and if you don't fit any of those, then they escalate you, and people hate that. And our customers seem to really appreciate the fact that we have resisted the urge to outsource our tech support despite the fact that I'm starting to buckle under the load. Okay, I just did all that. Now, going along with this whole thing, since I'm talking about tech support, there's really only 3 things you have to do to be good at it. You don't even need to be all that technically inclined. Be honest. Be honest. People are going to call in, and I don't know where this belief came from, but people are going to call in and say, is the server down? For some reason, a whole bunch of people in this world seems to think that the internet survives in this big refrigerator-sized box that says the server across the top of it, and everything is in there. All of YouTube, all of Google, all of everything. And when something doesn't work, that thing is busted. I don't know where this belief comes from. Just do what I do. Go either which one, or say, no, we're not having any outages that I'm aware of. Is there something I can help you with? Or if you are having a problem, very calmly admit it. You ever called Comcast or Time Warner or any DSL carrier and spent an hour on hold to find out, after yelling at some tech for 30 minutes, oh yeah, somebody took a backhoe through our fiber in that area and your service is going to be out for the rest of the day. They never admit this, and it's very frustrating for people. They are very okay with outages. People are very understanding. If you have a problem, tell them. And they go, oh, okay, I'm going to go read a book. And they come back, and they're happy that you got it working. You admit these things, and people go, oh, that must mean you're working on it. That's great, because I understand that things break. Almost everybody is cool with this, and then you get the 1% that you can never please, and they want a discount for a 5-minute outage. Whatever. They always leave, and then they come back. They go to your competitors suck more than you do. They come back. Somebody else is cheaper than you. They go to them. Their tech support doesn't speak anything but Hindu, so they come back to you. There are people that are all over the place. You just make money off of reconnection fees on those. And giggle yourself to sleep at night. Now, well, we actually retain ownership of the radios. So when you cancel, we come out and grab it. I'm glad you mentioned that because I didn't think of this. A lot of wireless ISPs make you buy the equipment, which is okay if you're an 802.11 provider, because then you have a little bit of portability. I am not an 802.11 provider. What are any of you going to do with a Canopy radio if you leave my service area and I don't want to buy it back? What are you going to do with it? You are sitting with a $350 unit. Yes, they are about $350, all said and done. We soak up most of that cost and just ask for a year contract and make it up. We are doing so well because we have good customer service, a stable network, and people stay after their contract is up. That's how we make money. But yes, a lot of places make you own the equipment. So if I have a 5.7 customer, and for anybody who knows anything, I'll just go into this. 5.7 gigahertz is the frequency you want in Canopy if you can get it. That is line of sight or very close, near line of sight to the tower. You are going to get 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8 megs down, more if you are willing to pay the extra money for an Advantage client unit. There's 2 series. There's the Advantage and there's the regular. The Advantage ones we usually hold in reserve for business customers because they cost about $75 more. But they are capable, in theory, of about 11 meg, which we split up 25-75% up, down. Say I have a 5.7 customer who's very marginal, very near line of sight, and he becomes unserviceable. If he owns the equipment, I can't call him up and say, hey, I'm going to come out and put a 900 megahertz up and get your service going again. No, I got to get approval from them. I got to explain to them why they need to pay extra money because 900 megahertz gear costs a bloody fortune because you need these big external antennas. The 5.7 stuff's got the internal patch panel. It's all built in. You cannot make anything work in 900 megahertz with an antenna this big. You need something this long or maybe twice this long. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. I love this. I'm just leaning down. Okay, that being said, I want to get back to marketing a little bit. The really cool thing about doing the rural areas, and now what we're finding is we're actually competing in the towns where the grain silos are, because the cable companies run maybe a single DS3 to these towns with a population of a couple thousand families tops, and they're saturated, so they cap the service at 3 meg down, 1 meg up. We're finding that people want our service instead of cable. And the reason that this is a lot of times we get into the area first, and we're available. And in these tiny little towns all across America, I'm assuming this is true everywhere, not just Northwest Ohio, everyone knows everyone. So you install 5, and all of a sudden the phone is ringing off the hook from everybody's aunt, uncle, cousin, nephew, grandma, granddaughter, best friend, beer drinking buddy. They all want your service because they all know each other, they all hang out at the same places, and they are very happy to soak up referral credits. Just tell people, you give us a customer, I'll give you a month off. All of a sudden, you have free advertising. It will explode. We can't keep up. We schedule 4 weeks in advance. I was going somewhere with that point, but now I'm lost. So my point was, yes, beat cable into the town with your service, get an established client base, and then the people who don't hear about you right away, they are going to order the cable when it is available, thinking it is the first thing in their town, or maybe they switch from DSL because, like I said, I hate DSL. Everybody hates DSL, or most people do. They switch to cable, and then they find out that they can get a lot more speed and a lot friendlier support from you guys. And all of a sudden, you're not getting calls from people saying, hey, I'm out here in the sticks, and all I can get is 28.8 on my stinking modem. Can you guys offer something? You're not getting those calls anymore. All of a sudden, you're getting, all I get is 2.5 meg down on my Time Warner cable modem. Can you go faster than that? Yes, sir, I can. Okay, so that's pretty much all the marketing theory I got for you. I'll talk a little bit about infrastructure. My network is essentially a triangle, the routed core. I've got a point of presence in Toledo where I don't actually have any wireless, but I've got peering with a major fiber carrier. Well, they're minor. They're Northwest Ohio only, Buckeye Telesystems. And we sell a lot of fiber stuff over their network in the city of Toledo. We do not do wireless in Toledo. It just seems really pointless. All the congestion, all the interference, every little 802.11 access point interfering with anything in 2.4 we could ever hope to use. It's just pointless. So we sell fiber optics in Toledo. Metro Ethernet used to be T1s. Those are going away. That's a dying technology. It's expensive. I love calling up our legacy T1 customers and saying, hey, can I offer you more speed, the same reliability, for less, and I still make more money off you? Where do you sign up? You know, it's great. But that's not really the focus of this talk, and I'm getting sidetracked. From that point in Toledo, I've got 100 meg Ethernet to the base of a grain silo. It's actually in the men's room, is where the demarc is. I don't know why they put it there, but it's really, really hilarious to go in there and be in the men's room working on the Juniper router, looking at the copy of Hustler magazine. These farmers have a 100 meg connection to a backbone, and they don't use it, ever. They have the smallest traffic graph of anybody on my network, yet they have porn all over this silo. It's creepy. They have porn at the top of the silo. You ride the lift, and there's Jugs magazine. All right! I don't want to be up here anymore. The rat droppings were bad enough, but now it's just creepy. All right, from there, I've got another proprietary wireless system made by a company called Dragonwave. And they only sell stuff in licensed spectrum. So you got to call the FCC and you got to request a band. They will actually help you with this, and it's not hard. It'll cost you a lot of money. $3,000 will cover you for 10 years. And you get this exclusive band that you can do whatever the heck you want with, as long as you don't move the antennas anywhere. You get it for a very specific geographic location. What I like about these is they've got Giga-E interfaces. It's 100 meg, and it's actually 100 meg. They are software upgradable to 250. And if you want to buy a second pair, you put 2 of them, and they actually will go the whole 500 meg. And these things are amazing. They guaranteed us 5 nines availability on these things when they sold us to them. sold them to us. I didn't believe them. I thought, bullshit. Even wireless isn't this reliable with, but really the reason wireless can be very reliable is you are not relying on another company. You don't have the fiber carrier or the copper carrier, the phone company. You don't have to deal with them. It's your thing. It's your job to keep it running. It's as reliable as you want to be dedicated, which is a point I skipped earlier on. I'll get back to that. This thing has actually been more reliable than the 100 meg Ethernet over fiber going in the other direction out of this pop. And in the other pop, at the other end of this wireless link, is our other DS3s. So I've got DS3s here, something in the middle, and a DS3 joining them this way. So I've got lots of redundancy, lots of bandwidth. These two here are directly attached to the wireless network, which has some implications. The rest of the network is all switched. We tried it with routed. We tried putting little routers at every tower and using OSPF, open shortest path first. And it kind of worked. We were using MikroTiks running Router OS, which is basically Linux with a few hacks thrown on top of it and a nice GUI. And we were using some Socras boards, Net 5501s with the 4-card expansion running OpenBSD. Now, I know Theo and Hennig are going to hate me for saying this, but there is no good OSPF implementation in a small package that you can put at a grain silo or a water tower. It just doesn't exist. I know they're really working hard. I like OpenBSD. I like the OpenOSPF implementation. I run it at my house to play with it, and I can break it anytime I want. Catch me after. I'll tell you how to kernel panic an OpenBSD box without even thinking about it. In fact, that's how I discovered the bug. And the MikroTiks, they have this nice little habit of saying, I've got a neighbor over there. He's trying to form an adjacency with me. I'm going to let him think he has, but I'm not going to accept any routes from him. And the one side will happily think it has an adjacency. The other half is ignoring it, and they will just do this. And the only thing you can do is reboot them. Now, what both of these platforms do have is a phenomenal rapid spanning tree implementation. So switch out your entire network, create a mesh. Don't just centralize your network with single points of failure. Create loops on your network with redundant backhauls and use spanning tree. Spanning tree, for those not in the know, is you're essentially creating a layer 2 broadcast loop. And then you are intelligently using managed switches saying, okay, this link is the backup. And one of the two switches on that link says, okay, I'm going to shut my interface down, and the other one keeps listening for that interface to come back up. You can get a pretty good convergence time, under 2 seconds, where you drop a link somewhere, it just goes around the other way. Now, like I said before, our network, we have 2 gateways on our network. Some of our traffic goes to the northern tower. Some of our traffic tries to get to the southern tower by default. Rapid spanning tree, at its most fundamental, assumes that your network has a single concentration point, not 2. And so you run into some problems. What happens if my northern tower becomes all Jericho-esque and is just gone? It's the default gateway for the northern half of my network. Yeah, I got all this layer 2 redundancy, but my layer 3 is trying to get to this tower that's not here anymore, which is where VRRP comes in, Virtual Router Redundancy Protocol. Just running between these 2 towers. You can do this on a sub-interface or a VLAN level. And I can say VLANs 1, 2, and 3 are my northern traffic best course of action. And I've got standbys over here. And VLANs 4, 5, and 6 are my southern traffic, best way out of the network. And I've got backups over here. You lose one, the IP addresses of the gateways just happily move over. And so you marry it with a little OSPF, a little rapid spanning tree, and a little VRRP, and you have an extremely redundant network. How am I doing on time? 12:40? Oh, wow, I'm exactly where I want to be. Okay. Oh, yeah, and I forgot to mention, I'm not doing slides. I had slides, and then I was listening to Jason Scott talk, and I became very inspired to not use slides because I hated them. I thought they would really bore everybody. I hope I'm not boring you now.
Still think you should have put the one thing on the side.
What's that?
Your sheet. Oh, funny.
Sheet, oh, funny?
The receipt.
Oh, okay. Everybody who wants to see the receipt from the world's worst customer, just bug me after the talk. I will happily tell you the story of this. It's hysterical. I didn't have a scanner. Otherwise, I guess I would. Yes, sir.
How many wireless points of presence do you have?
Right around 15. We're covering about 900 square miles right now.
And they're on several different bands? Radio
Yeah, for customers, we use exclusively 900 megahertz, 2.4 gigahertz, and 5.7. We do have some backhauls in, like I said, the licensed spectrum, 18 and 22 gigahertz. Or is it 1.8? I forget. It's 18. And we also have some unlicensed backhauls in, we use a lot of 5.7 because 5.7 has very few power restrictions. You can get a 5.7 backhaul, I think 28 miles with reflectors, 20 meg. Anything past that and it'll happily step down to 10 meg, but it'll still do it. 5.2 is kind of nice for your really close-in things because 5.7 spectrum is precious. Like I said, if your customers can get it, you want to give it to them. It's the fast one. 900 is your last resort, and I'll get into that in just a second. 5.2 is like 5.7. You can fit a lot of data through it, but it has severe power restrictions on it based on what the FCC says you can and can't do. You're only good for about 5 miles range point to point, and only about 2.5 miles range point to multi-point. So it's pretty much useless as an access point unless you're at the base of a valley and all of the walls of the valley are within that 2.5 mile range. That would be an ideal circumstance for that sort of thing. Now, like I said, 900, what's that?
Do you have a lot of hills? What is your topology like?
We're over in Northwest Ohio, which is about the flattest place on planet Earth other than maybe Kansas. The only thing we got to worry about is trees, which is where the 900 megahertz comes in. And this is actually where I want to talk about pricing. We have a flat rate. We charge $49.95 a month for our bandwidth, and we do our bandwidth backwards. We say, let me start with the cable companies. They say you'll get 3 meg down and 1 meg up, maybe. You're burstable up to that. If you get that, that's great. If not, that's not our problem. We take the exact opposite, and these numbers sound horribly low, but like I said, my customers are getting 5 down, 1, 2 up. We guarantee you will get 384K down and 256K up. If we cannot make that benchmark when we are there to install it, we will not install the service. The reason we do this is there is a lot of disparity between the frequencies. If we have to install a 900 megahertz client, they are only going to get about 2.5 meg down and only about 768K to 1 meg up. That's because 900 megahertz wave is a lot wider, you can cram a lot less data into it, but you can shoot it through a brick wall. Literally, I took a 17 dB Yagi antenna, set it on my couch in my living room through 2 walls towards the access point, and it connected at 74 dB, which is about 6 dB higher than it needs to be to work. The other problem is 900 is the most prone to interference. Incidentally, the dish on the roof feeding the con is 900. I have no idea how they expected to run 900 in a metropolitan area with all the pager traffic at 890 megahertz interfering with it like crazy, but it seems to be working just fine. I would never dream of putting 900 in an area like this.
So when you go out for an install, you just take one radio of each kind and see which one works?
We think them out a little bit. Google Maps is awesome. Literally, you get a piece of paper and you just put yourself a little straight edge where the house is. You might have to ask the customers, oh, do you have a pond in your backyard? Do you have a pool? Do you have a red barn? And okay, so your house is surrounded by 5 trees. Okay, I think this is you, and I know my tower is here. Okay, I can get you 2.4 off of tower A or 5.7 off of tower B. And you just plan your day. Bring a couple of everything, bring what you know you're going to need, or at least think you know what you're going to need, and go. And more often than not, we're getting really good at it. We're usually right. But if you do have to do a 900, the problem with the interference, what I was getting into, is it takes about 3 times as much infrastructure to meet the capacity of a single 5.7 access point. The interference between the clients is just too great. So 100 clients on a tower in 900 will overwhelm a omnidirectional. You've got to split it up. You could put 2 180s, We tried 3 120s at our very first split up 900 tower. It's a nightmare because 900 is very bleedy and there are essentially only 3 channels in 900 that don't eat each other. And that tower is also extremely close to Toledo, picks up a lot of noise from Toledo. There's a refinery right there that does a lot of stuff. It's a pain in the butt. So the customer, the equipment costs more, you spend more on infrastructure, and the customer gets less service. So hence why we do our bandwidth backwards. This is a last resort for you, or you can go with satellite and have latency through the roof. Bye-bye. I really won't miss you because I know you'll be back. But I just fizzled out. I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, sir.
You just mentioned you weren't trying to do video and phones in your company. But would it be such that Mr. Red Barn there could slap bondage on it and not be disappointed? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when people ask us, I probably shouldn't say this, but we tell people not to get Vonage. We tell them to get anybody else. You know, any voice over IP provider. We've had good luck with Packet 8. And we tell them, you know, it's not our service. We can't guarantee that it works. But you're talking to me on a voice over IP phone right now, and I use our service because I've got a voice over IP phone at home that rings at exactly the same time as my desk phone at work. This is both a good and a bad thing. The things I forgot to mention about customer service. The obvious one. Did you have a question, sir?
When you get done.
Let me finish this real quick. The obvious points of customer service are the honesty thing. The really obvious one is patience, because like I said, you're going to hear from the same 30 people every week. Plug it in, ma'am. Just plug it in. It gets really old. It's funny up here, but on Monday I'm going to be crying. The other one is availability or dedication. We're small. It's the boss and me, and an office manager who is not dedicated to her job whatsoever. Oh, wait. Can we edit that out? I wanted to show this to my boss, but now I guess I can't. Sorry, boss. I'm just not impressed with her. Don't show this to her, please. Yeah. Like I said, I have a voice over IP phone that rings when my office phone rings. If I don't pick that up, my cell phone rings. I'm on call 24/7. Ask Kim. She hates it. We're trying to have a quiet Friday evening, and I go, hey, Kim, I got to go to Oregon Road. Again? Yeah. Ask me about that. I've got a fun static electricity story. Okay, your question, sir. This is a good time.
Two. One that you just brought up. How many access points and radios do you lose to the weather?
Just about 3-4% a year. And it's pretty much stayed constant at that percentage. We've only ever had one major tower actually struck by lightning, and it cost us $16,000. It hurt. Now we have insurance. They wouldn't insure us before. Then we proved we will cost you money, and all of a sudden they want our money. I don't know. And your next one, please?
Where do you mount the antennas? Same sort of mounting points as dish? Or?
Yeah, a lot of times the eave of the house is good. We really try to avoid going through the roof of the house because people really don't like that. Some people will not let you bolt anything to their house, so you put a post up in their yard, you bury the wire, you snake it up and throw it in a window because they just will not let you drill a hole in their precious, precious house. Well, the problem is we do a good job. At least I think we do. I've seen some other wireless customers that we've stolen from our competitors that are in the same area. One actually uses the same towers as us and uses our backbone network for transit. And I guess, you know, the reputation is a little deserved in some cases because some of the workmanship is just gah. Okay, so what about, oh yeah, you first.
How much is a static up?
We just give everybody one. We assign them via DHCP, but we just let everybody have a static IP. It was just easier that way. I've got a beautiful website that tells me all the IPs that we've been allocated by Aaron, which ones are used, which ones are free, and we just go down the list. New customer off the Greytown Tower, okay, you're da-dum, 5. So everybody gets one, and really for a /29, which is about 5 usables, We don't even charge for those. Businesses want a block of them. We just give them a VLAN, and there, you've got your own little network. Go crazy. Anything bigger, generally they're buying something insane, like a fiber link with 10 meg on it or 20 meg, and we just throw in a /24 of IP address space for free. Aaron does charge a lot for the address space that we have and the ASN number. We are a multi-homed carrier, so we are an autonomous system. We really can't see any benefit to passing that cost on to our customers. It's not that bad. And you, sir, you had a question? Is that good? Okay.
So I know you're on flat land, but are you familiar at all with how the technologies perform in hilly areas and what requirements do you need?
Yes, actually, because there's a wonderful conference every year in Utah hosted by a company called Wireless Beehive, and it's called Animal Farm. And WISPs from all over the country, it's mostly Canopy stuff because we met all these guys on the Canopy mailing list. They get together and they discuss the ins and outs of their service in various terrains. And there are people using it in hilly areas, basically try to get it to the top of the hill for your access point and just service the people you can. There's a guy in Florida who can't use dishes because the high winds will rip them off the house, so he is restricted to very short-range customers. The technology works just about anywhere except completely buried in the trees. Really, about the only thing I had left to talk about was the need for redundancy, and it's kind of boring. Just have spares of everything. Mother Nature can and will eat everything you have. Snow will fill up into the surge suppressors at the base of the houses. Spiders actually climb in between the pins of the Ethernet jack and the plug, and it's power over Ethernet. They complete a circuit and they blow it out. I swear, wolf spiders are the stupidest creatures alive because this happens all the time. Fortunately, the surge suppressors are really nice. Motorola makes a nice surge suppressor, and it does do its job. Don't replace very many network cards, but man, I go to a lot of customers' houses and go, "Yep, here's your problem. This thing did its job." We just replace those for free. Have spare access points on hand. If you want horror stories, bug me afterwards. I would love to tell horror stories, but I could go on for hours. In case you haven't noticed, I like to talk. We're pretty close to the end, aren't we? Oh, yes, sir.
How many wireless customers do you have?
We're pushing right about 1,000 right now. We're right about at the end, so questions, please, because that's really about all I had to say.
What percentage of your customer base is fiber versus wireless?
Oh, we're about 99% wireless.
Really?
We're only allowed to sell business circuits over Buckeye's fiber network in Toledo. They won't let us sell their fiber to the home, which they're just rolling out, so we don't even try. Yes, sir.
If you were to break out just the wireless part of your business, and when you started that, 5 years ago?
Uh-huh.
At what point did you break even with the number of wireless customers if you just segmented out that part of the business?
Individually?
Well, I mean, at some point you got to the point where it was profitable for the wireless part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of overlap.
Overall, I would say we're constantly adding new tower sites, so it's a sliding scale. But I would say overall, we probably broke even about 2 years into the project, with the exception of the customers that we just added, because like I said, those radios are about $300, $350, depending on how many you buy in bulk. And that price keeps going down for us because we're buying more and more at a time.
And after 2 years, how many wireless customers did you have?
I think we had about 400, maybe 350, and it's really taken off recently.
And how many wireless points of presence did you have at that point?
Oh, about 11.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we've added a few more since then, and we've actually segmented some towers where we take the omnidirectional access point down and replace it with 3 120s, 5.7, and take that Omni and put it at a new site.
I grew up in a rural area in northeastern Pennsylvania,
Mhm.
and I still have family and a bunch of friends there. I don't live there anymore. I live in Philadelphia, but there's no broadband access other than the local exchange carrier, and they have horrible DSL service.
Mhm.
It's limited. They give you 3 gigs a month, and they charge you a fortune on top of that.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking there's got to be some sort of wireless solution
Yeah.
to do that. But I'm trying to figure out at what point would it break even to do do that, because there's like one of the neighbors has a silo at the top of the hill. There's line of sight to everybody in the valley. But you know, at what point would it be feasible to have a T1 and then set something like that up?
Yeah. Really, I think one reason that we did survive is we had other revenue streams. We do a lot of web hosting as well. In fact, that's basically how I got the job, is I know a lot about Apache. I knew a lot less about networking 5 years ago, let me tell you.
Is the area where you're primarily established, are you having any problems with people moving out of rural areas? The rural areas around me are turning into ghost towns. There's still people who want broadband.
Yeah.
Their kids don't.
Not really. I'd say for every 50 customers I sign up, I lose one. I'm not kidding. And I get customers call up and threaten to cancel, and then they never do. And it's always the ones you can never please, but then they find out what the competition is like and decide that as much as they hate me, they hate the other guy more. Actually, a lot of people around Toledo are moving out into the rural areas. Because I don't know if you've ever been to Toledo. It is nothing special. We moved out into the rural areas. Kim and I moved into our coverage area because I wanted really fast service and Time Warner sucks. Any more? I think we're right about at the end of our time, if I'm guessing correctly. 6 whole minutes? Okay, please, questions. Come on, I'm dancing up here.
Is there government funding available to service or to get service to underserviced areas? Because I know that in Canada we give out money.
Yes, actually there is, but I'm never going to see any of it.
How come you'll never see it?
Because I'm already successful and don't need it.
But you're exactly the kind of person in Canada that we would give money to because you can prove your track record. So if we're going to give $500,000 to someone, we want to give it to someone who already knows how to set up a network.
Yeah, that's what I would think would be the logical course of action too, but this is America. Our politicians are idiots. There are 2 big things that I'm greatly aware of. One, Carty Finkbeiner, the wonderful, wonderful mayor of the city of Toledo. Seriously, Google that name. There are some really funny things out there about this man. He wants to do the citywide 802.11 coverage.
But this is rural. I mean,
Yeah.
it comes from the farming ministry, basically. It comes from NOTACON, which is the
All right,
Farm and
all right.
Agriculture Ministry.
All right, well then let me talk about the other one. Strickland, the mayor or the governor of Ohio, is really pushing for a statewide coverage. But the last I checked, everybody that was bidding on doing it wanted to do it with 802.11. I don't know if people just don't know any better. We tried 802.11. I have hard knowledge that this will not work. But I mean,
What they put in, because I've got, locally, I've got very, very hilly topography.
Mhm.
And we did not go with 802.11. We basically have the same setup that you've got, where we've got a range of different frequencies.
All right.
That service a range of different things. And ultimately, if someone is in the equivalent of a block of trees or the bottom of the valley, they're responsible for putting up, essentially, we call it a periscope. We don't call it a tower.
all right, fair enough.
So, but
All right, if there are no other questions, I would just like to thank you all for coming. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you all enjoyed it. And I'd like to thank Froggy and Tiger and everybody who makes NOTACON possible, because I'm having a blast. Thank you. Thank you very much. And like I said, catch me outside. I could talk for hours.